What's happening, guys? It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown, and I'm delighted to be joined here for Laurie from DR Sports. Listen, we are here to present, for me anyway, the biggest fight in boxing since Mayweather Pacquiao. I'm saying it. I'm going out on a limb and saying it. That's how excited I am for this. Errol Spence and Terence Crawford for the undisputed welterweight championship of the world. Unbeaten. Two fantastic fighters. Listen, two of my favourite fighters, I'm not afraid to say it. These two guys are my favourite active fighters in the sport today. They're going to be meeting. All the stakes will be on the line. It all boils down to this. Number one versus number two, or number 1A versus 1B, whatever you want to call it. But we're finally seeing these two get it on. And it's just going to be a fantastic event and a fantastic showdown.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't put it any better than what you've done already. I mean, I described it in one of our previous shows when I talked about Super Bowl. This really is the Super Bowl week. And this fight is the culmination of the Super Bowl. You talked about this fight being the biggest fight since Mayweather and Pacquiao. That was in 2015. And if you think about it, Darryl, we've already been spoiled with some great fights already this year.
We have.
Going back to Tank and Ryan Garcia and Inoue and Fulton. And now this, man. I mean, it's mouthwatering, man. From the minute this fight was made, man, I was made up. This is a great fight, man. Between two, like you said, Darryl. I'm struggling to think of two fighters I like more than these guys. I mean, I like a lot of fighters, obviously, but these two are special, man.
Well, let me say this, you know, if you were to ask me before this fight was made, two fighters, put them together for any, if someone was to say to me, one of the boxing gods out there said, let me know what fight you want and I'll make it, I would have said this one.
Yeah,
I would have said, I mean, people would say maybe Usyk and Fury for the undisputed heavyweight title. You know, there are other fights out there, maybe Joshua Wilder people would want to see. But for me personally, and this is just my personal opinion, it doesn't get better than this in terms of the
I think most boxing fans would agree with that. There's some other great fights, Usyk and Fury, and Fury and AJ, and and Canelo and Benavidez, if you ever want to take that fight. But if you look out on the horizon, this fight stands out. You know what I mean? This is the fight that everybody wants to see. We need to see this fight in this era. And like I said, Mayweather Pacquiao, that took place in 2015. I can't think of a bigger fight. I mean, you could say Shakur versus Tank in a year or two's time, but even then, I don't think that would be as big as this one.
Yeah. Well, let's take a little, let's go back a bit and see how we got here. Errol Spence Jr. First of all, we were there when he travelled over to Sheffield to defeat Kell Brook. And I'm going to be honest with you guys on camera now. I went up there. I was a big fan of Spence back then. And I secretly wanted him to beat Brook. I didn't say it to much people, but I went up to Sheffield that night and I was rooting for him because I knew how good he was going to be. That was back in 2017. Yeah. We're in 2023 now. That was when Errol Spence won his first world title, taking it off Kell Brook, literally in his backyard. Sheffield, that's literally his back garden. He went over there. Impressive. And for me, that told me a lot about Errol Spence because to come over here and do that was incredible, for one.
Yeah, I mean, Kell Brook as well was an outstanding champion. Okay, Kell Brook was coming off the Golovkin loss, but as a welterweight, he'd not been beaten. And a lot of people thought that him being on home turf, Spence coming into hostile territory, it could go in Brook's favour. But on that night, he had to come through some rough moments because Kell did test him, there's no doubt about it. But in the end, it was a resounding win. He stopped Kell Brook. Broke him down, as Errol Spence tends to do. And it's a great fight. I mean, I've been following Errol Spence since the amateurs. I remember him coming to the UK in 2012 as part of the US Olympic team. He didn't medal, but if you remember, he had a controversial fight with an Indian fighter where he should have got the decision, he didn't, it was overturned, and I think he went out in the next round. But even back then, the likes of Freddie Roach and one or two other people saying that this guy's going to be a very good pro. And he's turned pro. He's had his issues, but he remains unbeaten. And he's been phenomenal. And then you spoke about fighters coming into hostile territory and winning. Remember Bud Crawford?
Bud Crawford.
Yeah, he came to Britain and took Ricky Burns' title. A performance which, incidentally, he says himself was one of his best career wins, coming to the UK and relieving Ricky Burns. And at the time, Ricky Burns was in excellent form. So for him to come over here and win well, I mean, he beat, let's face it, a very good fighter. He beat him quite easily that night. So that tells you all you need to know about Terence Crawford. And that was at lightweight, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And then he went up to light welter after that, cleaned out the division.
Became undisputed.
Went up to welterweight, won the title there from Jeff Horn, and I think he's made 7 defences, all by stoppage.
All by knockout.
So, I mean, I think he's 39-0.
Yep.
And, yeah, man, extremely impressive.
And then on the other hand, you've got Errol Spence, who after winning that title against after winning that title against Kell Brook, he then went on to defeat the likes of Sean Porter for the WBC. Yeah. Before that, he also defeated Ugas after that, for the WBA belt. And he's took a lot of good fighters and names along the way. I mean, Danny Garcia literally dominated him. Yeah. Mikey Garcia dominated him. Yeah. He's got some great names on his resume, Errol Spence has, and this is the one that we've been calling for years. I remember when the two...
If I could just interject there just briefly, Darryl, I think it's important to remember that when he beat Danny Garcia, that was coming off
that
a hiatus because of the car crash he'd had. And I think it's fair to say, and I'm sure Errol will admit this himself, that he was starting to not live the life of a boxer, and it kind of caught up with him with that car crash.
Yep.
You were seeing stories out there of him turning up to fights, not his own fights, but shows,
other events.
Looking a little bit worse for wear, intoxicated even. He's admitted that he did have a bit of a drink problem. He went off the rails a little bit, but still managed to keep winning. And he had that horrific car. I mean, if you ever seen
the footage of
the car, how he even got out of that alive. And for him to make a comeback and take on in his first fight after that car crash, Danny Garcia, who's one of the toughest guys pound for pound, one of the best chins in boxing, schooled him, let's be honest. He beat him quite comfortably. And then go on and beat Sean Porter, who did test him, let's be honest, did rock him a couple of times. Some people said that it was fairly even up until Spence knocked him down in the 11th round. And then, let's be honest, man, Ugas, a lot of people who thought that it might be a bridge too far, he completely cleaned his clock. Yeah. Very impressive. Don't forget, that was the Ugas that was coming off a stoppage win of Manny Pacquiao. Not a stoppage win, but a win over Manny Pacquiao.
And let me say this as well about Errol Spence bouncing back from adversity. He also had serious eye surgery on top of the car accident.
That's right. So detached retina, wasn't it?
He's been through so much, like outside of the ring as well as inside the ring. So the bounce back ability that Errol Spence has shown, the heart and courage, and to remain unbeaten, to remain on tip top form, cleaning out top level opponents, kind of sets him up really good against a Bud Crawford who has looked, incredible in the ring. He's a switch hitter, fantastic fighter, former undisputed champion, as you said, at junior welterweight. This is the one that we've wanted for so long. I remember the confrontation that the two had, friendly confrontation, but it was there was a fight. I think they were both gone to watch a fight, and then they were met backstage.
That's right.
They exchanged a few words, all friendly, but you can just see.
Yeah, you can see there was that competitive edge.
Yeah, you saw it
simmering. And credit to both guys, they kept it classy, even in the lead up to this fight. There has been, a bit of creative tension and competitive tension between the two, but they've not crossed the line into disrespect. I don't think so, anyway.
No, they haven't.
So that's another thing that makes this fight, even more anticipated. The fact that they've managed to hold it together, and man, I cannot wait.
Yeah, I really am excited for this. And if we delve into the actual fight itself, man, you look at Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, their resumes, like you highlighted. Terence Crawford has knocked out everybody he's fought at welterweight. Errol Spence considered a big puncher at welterweight as well. Who is the puncher out of these two in this fight here? Because look at what Errol Spence did to Ugas. He breaks his opponents down. But then Terence Crawford had an unbelievable one-punch knockout win over David Avanesian, who is tough.
Yeah.
And he knocked him out with one shot, clean.
Right. Yeah, that's
so
right.
Who's the puncher for you in this fight?
Well, you would have to say Crawford, based on the fact that all his fights at welterweight so far have ended in stoppage. The thing about Crawford, he's a very accurate puncher. And when he gets an opponent going, a bit like what he did to Kell Brook, a bit like what he did to the Green Machine, once he hurts you, he's able to land. I've seen him do that to Jose Benavidez as well.
Yeah.
Once he gets them hurt, the follow-up combinations seem to land pretty much with unerring accuracy,
very fluid.
and that helps him getting them out of there. He's also got a killer instinct, He's got that dog in him, isn't he, Crawford? He's a real fighting man. So, yeah, he's a formidable opponent.
Yeah.
And the same could be said for Spence. He's more of a guy, though, that he's very... he breaks people down, doesn't he? Like, he's a ferocious body puncher, goes to the body. He fights out of Texas, which is... He adopts somewhat of the Mexican style a little bit.
Really
the way
does,
he
yeah.
comes forward, looks to throw those hooks to the body. He's a southpaw. Looks to throw those hooks to the body and then go to the head. And he's a killer, man. He's a calculated killer in there as well.
I think
you've got two killers.
I think they both are.
Two
and I think
killers, man.
That's why it makes this such a fascinating fight, man. And I look at it like, okay, Errol Spence, he's the bigger man, the naturally bigger man.
Yes, I think that's fair to say.
That's fair to say, right?
Well, he's been a career welterweight. He's been fighting at welterweight, by the way, since the amateurs.
Yeah.
And that was his last amateur fight would have been 2012. So that's 11 years ago. And he's still a welterweight now. Probably stayed at welterweight for maybe a fraction bit too long.
Well, that's the thing. He's pondering the move up to light middleweight. He even said, I saw in his Instagram story, that he is considering the move up in rate after he beats Crawford. So he says, that remains to be seen. But he's the naturally bigger man. He's slightly taller than Crawford, but these dimensions, I don't think it affects Crawford too much. We've seen him go up against bigger men, and like he stopped everybody at welterweight. He's gone up against taller men. I'm thinking of the Victor Postol fight, not the same sort of fight, but you saw what he did to him. So,
he's gone up against bigger men, but I would argue it's not just the size of Spence. He's physically very strong. You speak to, or you've seen interviews of any of the guys that's fought Spence, and they all say that physically he's the strongest person that they've ever been in there with. And that counts for a lot, especially if you're going 12 rounds or it's a grueling fight. If somebody, I've boxed before, sometimes you go in there with a guy, you can feel his strength almost immediately. So imagine feeling that strength for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 rounds, you know what I mean?
What about Crawford, who does have a background in wrestling?
Yeah, that's true as well. But we do have to take into account that he is coming up from lightweight. Yeah. So he started his career as a lightweight and he's come up to welterweight, whereas Spence is a career welterweight. So I would imagine that he will be on the night physically stronger than Crawford. However, that's like you said, it's not to say that Crawford won't have his own strength, you know what I mean? So again, that's another intriguing intangible, you know what I mean?
Well, let's break the fight down, man. Errol Spence is a southpaw. But he's not your conventional southpaw where he's moves and he's slick. Errol does have that in him. But like you said, he tends to go forward. He's on the front foot. He asserts his dominance. He breaks you down. Then you've got Crawford, who can switch hit. Timing's brilliant. Got great power as well. Yeah. He's quick.
And he's nasty as well.
And he's very nasty with it. Yeah. So they both are. Yeah. So what I see here between these two is who's going to be able to assert their ring generalship on each other more, and that's going to be very good to see, because I can imagine it starting off with both of them feeling each other out at first, but you get the sense that this is going to be, it's just going to evolve into a war at some point.
Oh, definitely. Errol Spence.
Who does that favour?
Who knows? It's too hard to say, because Errol Spence, as you said, Darryl, southpaw. Now, most southpaws tend to be counterpunchers by virtue. Yeah. Right? Because they want the other person to lead off and then they can counter. Yep. That's what most southpaws tend to do. You could argue that Gervonta Davis is another one that is a bit like Errol Spence and more aggressive. But I have seen Gervonta circle and move. I don't think you're going to see that of Errol Spence. In fact, Errol Spence has been quite open about this fight. He says, I'm going to break him. And sometimes when fighters come out and so-called give their game plan away early, it's a bit of a ruse. I don't think that's the case in this particular example. I think what he will do, he'll look to go on the front foot straight away. Behind the jab, he won't be reckless, but he'll be looking to make his size and strength count, get in behind the southpaw jab, land hooks to the body, and try and unsettle Crawford early. The problem with that, though, is that he could walk onto one or two or three or four, you know what I mean? Yep. So, listen, man, it's a great fight.
And that's the thing. Both of them have, like, as great as both of them are, they have shown the tendency to get hit. It's not like they're slick, and they're not like a Floyd Mayweather where they don't get hit. I've seen Bud get hit. I've seen Spence get hit. It's
Both of them have been hurt.
Yeah, we saw Errol Spence in the last fight.
Yeah, he
against
got
Ugas.
hurt.
He got hurt.
Yeah.
We saw Crawford against.
I think he got hurt, to be fair, as well, by Sean Porter.
Yep.
Even though he said that he wasn't hurt, he was a little off balance. I think he said the same thing with Ugas.
Yep.
I think he got in that fight with Ugas. I think, to be fair to him, he got hit. I think he's got a bridge in his mouth, and following the accident, he's got some new teeth. And he said, and I do believe him. He said he got hit in the mouth and he felt like the teeth were going to fall out in the ring.
Yeah.
So he kind of momentarily, instinctively turned away, and he got hit by Ugas and went off balance into the ropes. But nevertheless, he can be caught, and I have seen him hurt before. So listen, his chin is solid, but it's not 100% rock solid. Same with Crawford. I've seen Crawford hurt a few times.
Gamboa?
Gamboa hurt him. Green Machine looked like Kavaliauskas. Yeah, they call him the Green Machine. He looked like he floored Crawford, but never got that.
I thought that could have counted.
That should really have counted. But as Crawford himself says, when he gets hurt, he gets up and he takes care of business. Kell Brook had a couple of good rounds against him. Albeit faded, Kell Brook fought Terence Crawford. That's a common opponent that they have.
Yep.
Errol Spence beat Kell Brook quite decisively in the end.
Yep.
Crawford did it quicker.
Dispatched of him.
But to be fair to Kell Brook, the first couple of rounds, man, Kell was doing well and landing.
That was going to be my next point. Crawford tends to be, as great as he is, he tends to be a slow starter. Errol Spence, as we've seen, he can, like, his punch output is pretty high for a welterweight.
It is.
Is that really important for him to get off to a great start here against Crawford?
I think it is what it is.
Can Crawford afford to take the few rounds off like he does to, generate what he needs to generate in his mind and how to beat Spence? Could that work against him? This is Errol Spence.
I think Crawford is one of those fighters, a bit like Lomachenko we've seen in recent years, a bit like Usyk as well, where these guys will start relatively slowly. They'll download the information, make the adjustments, and then come on strong in the latter half of the fight. And I could see Crawford doing a similar thing. The only problem with that is that once Errol Spence gets into a rhythm, it's difficult to shift him, especially if he's able to push you back and establish his size and strength. That's what he does. He'll dig to the body, use the jab, and look to hurt you that way. So it's intriguing on so many levels, man. It really is a 50-50 fight. It could be down to who wants it more on the night. It could be down to the corners having the best game plans. But for sure, this is going to be a great fight. I cannot wait.
One thing that's fascinating to me about this fight is when I watched the preview shows, and I think I've watched all the podcasts, all the interviews, everything.
You cannot do anything but, really.
Yeah. Both of them are so set in their mind, and I know every fighter believes they'll win, but when I watch them two on interviews and shows and everything else, they really do believe that they're going to win, and not just win, win decisively. Like, they both really believe it. Something's got to give. You know
what that is as well, though? That is the supreme confidence of an unbeaten fighter. We spoke about that previously when we analysed the Fulton and Inoue fights.
Yeah.
When you get fighters at this level, they don't know what it's like to lose. So they're coming into that fight thinking, listen, man, I'll get myself into the best possible shape. Nobody can beat me. Yeah. And that's what I see from both of these guys. And that's another reason why this fight cannot fail. Because you've got two elite fighters, both unbeaten, both supremely confident, and both believe in themselves to the 8th degree. It cannot be anything but a great fight.
Totally.
Because there will be ebb and flow in this fight. I don't think it's going to be one person dominating and throughout. I think it's going to be a case of Spence might have a couple of good rounds, Crawford will have a couple of good rounds, Spence will come back, and it'll probably be down to who wins 10, 11 and 12. You know what I mean? It's just going to be as close as that, because I can't see either of them getting knocked out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've spoke to people, knowledgeable boxing fans as well, about this fight, and I've got some people that are certain that Errol Spence is going to win, and then I've got other knowledgeable boxing fans that are certain that Terence Crawford is going to win. Like you said, something's got to give here, and I'm just fascinated to see how it's going to play out.
Well, you may be a bit too young to remember this, but this is this era's Sugar Ray Leonard versus Tommy Hearns, as far as I'm concerned. Especially given as well that, for me, I mean, it may not be quite as big as those two back in the day, because the viewing audiences, believe it or not, are actually more for boxing than they are now. But in terms of the fighters, you know what I mean, the status of the two fighters, what it means to the division, this is as big as it gets right now. So listen, man, you could easily sit here and make cases for either man to win.
Let's do it. How do you, Errol Spence, what are the keys to victory here? What does he need to do to, and it's hard, right? Because both of these guys are unbeaten, so it's hard to, it's hard to judge it and how to measure it. But what does Errol Spence need to do to come out victorious against Terence Crawford?
Well, listen, Errol Spence has thrown his cards on the table. Yeah, he's already told the world what he's going to do. He says, I'm going to break him. And I think realistically, that is the only way he's going to beat Crawford, because I do think that Crawford has the edge in terms of pure boxing skill.
Yeah.
But a bit like Fulton and Inoue, where we spoke about a fighter using their size advantage and strength to try and maximise their opportunities. I think that's what Spencer's got to do. He's a southpaw. So that might help, although Crawford is a switch hitter, and he's shown no deficiency in dealing with southpaws previously. But I would imagine that Errol Spence is going to be the fighter coming forward for the majority of this. If I see Crawford backing Spence up early, to me it's a done deal.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would imagine that Spence is going to be the one, the term we use, making the fight, coming forward, behind the jab. He'll be tucked up. He won't be reckless. He'll be using the jab, but he'll be looking to go to the body. That's a big part of his game plan normally, to go to the body, to try and invest in hurting people to the body, slowing them down, using his size, pushing Crawford back at every opportunity. Every time he gets hit by Crawford, coming back with 2-3 of his own, pushing him, you know what I mean? Maybe not ragdolling him, but making him know that he's the physically bigger and stronger man in there. And like I said, just a process of wearing him down. It's as simple as that. There's no real science behind what he's going to do, although he cannot do it recklessly. But that is going to be the game plan, to push Crawford back, hurt him to the body, slow him down, so that in the later rounds, he can have his way. Now, whether he can do that, though, because that's a very risque strategy, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
Because when you do that, you're basically walking into Crawford's counter shots.
Yeah, and that's the big issue here.
So, and again,
I think
both chins are going to be tested in this fight.
I think Spence needs to establish, and he needs to get those early rounds in the bank for me. He
Definitely
can't allow Crawford to settle into his rhythm early on. What about Crawford then? His keys to victory against Errol Spence. What is it? Quite self-explanatory what he needs to do?
Yeah, I mean, listen. If Spence is going to be the one coming forward, which we strongly suspect that is going to be the case, then Crawford, I wouldn't say he's got to be moving backwards, but what he will need to be doing is giving Spence angles, not staying right in front of Spence, moving but not running, and at the same time looking to counter, looking to stand his ground. When you get your opportunity to get your shots off, let them off 2-3 at a time, move, frustrate Spence a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do all those little things in there that he's been doing over the years. And I think, listen, again, it could come down to who wants it most, who is able to execute their game plan best on the day.
Well,
and when I say best on the day, it literally means on the day who is in better condition, who is, you know what I mean? Because there's going to be small margins in this fight, I think.
Yep.
And the percentages or the margins for error are going to be very small.
Well, I've seen that Crawford is the slight odds-on favourite with the bookies here for this fight, but it really is a pick-em. For one person who believes Crawford's strongly going to win, we've seen someone else say that Spence is strongly going to win. Let's get our predictions in, man, for this one here, because for me, I'm not going to lie, man. I'm going to be sad to see one of these guys lose.
Yeah,
but
me too,
like you told me the other day, you did, because I did say this to you off camera, and what you said to me was that at least it's against each other. At least they're doing it. There's no shame in losing to the other here.
No, not at all.
Unless it's a draw. You never know.
You know what? I could see that as well. You could see a draw because they're so well matched, and the fact that it kind of would make business sense. And
There's a rematch clause.
Yeah, I don't want to say that for reasons of skepticism. I hope they don't just give a draw because that's the cop out.
Yeah.
But if it's a keenly contested fight and there really is no way of splitting them, then I would rather see a draw than see one man get shafted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Agree.
So it's one of them, man. I mean, initially, when we spoke about this fight, when it first got announced, I was definitely in the Crawford camp. I was thinking that, listen, man, Crawford looks to be the guy in form. He's been doing it over a long period. I think he's 39-0, as we said. Errol Spence did go through that period where it has to be said he wasn't the most focused and he was starting to show. But recently, the form that Errol Spence is showing, man, that kind of...
Will inactivity play a factor here? Errol Spence been out the ring over a year. Crawford been out the ring nearly a year, up to a year.
It's possible, but I think they're both in the same boat. So I think we're still going to get a great fight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, as I was saying, initially I was heavily leaning towards Crawford. But as the days have gone by, man, and I've seen what great shape, well, they're both in.
Fantastic.
I like the body language of Spence. I like how confident he sounds, but I also like the body language and confidence of Crawford. It's such a hard pick, man. But you know what I'm going to do, right? Because I know where you're going.
Yeah.
I think that, and my shirt is a little bit of a giveaway, man. You know what I mean?
Shirt, yeah.
Errol Spence is of Jamaican antecedents. His dad is Jamaican. They rep the Jamaican flag. We're Jamaican, of course.
Yep.
We've got to rep the country. We love the country. We love the UK, but listen, man, we got to big up Jamaica at all times. You see me repping a shirt. Shout out to the reggae girls.
Is this
I'm going to go Spence on points.
Is this head
mainly
or heart?
because
Is this what you want?
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, but if I had to go with my absolute, somebody took that away, then I'd probably lean towards Crawford. But because of that, now I'm going to lean towards Spence because I know where you're going. So
yeah, and I have to admit, it's over the last few weeks, it has really been difficult to pick. You know, 1 minute I'm edging Spence, I'm texting my friend saying, oh yeah, I think Spence is going to do it. And then I'm thinking, oh no, actually, Crawford's going to do it. But like you, I hate to root against either because like I said, I love both of the fighters and I will, if I had to pick, will root for Spence. But I do think that Crawford will edge it on the night, man. I just think that...
No, listen, if you say
variety,
that,
I just think that he's got just a little bit more in terms of variety.
He does.
What he can do and... Yeah, I just think that Spence can get caught a lot as well. So can Bud, but yeah, it's a bit concerning.
It could be a war of attrition, though.
It could be, yeah.
And the reason why I say that as well is because although Crawford is a slick boxer who does use his boxing skills, he can get drawn into a fight as well.
And that was not going to be good for him if he does.
No.
Got to be smart with it.
But he's quite a macho type of fighter. He's a dog at the end of the day, man. He's not going to want to get ragdolled or pushed around by Spence. He's going to want to stand his ground. Now, if he engages Spence like that, then you're kind of playing into Spence's strengths a little bit there. Punching power, you'd have to lean towards Crawford just because all his fights at welterweight so far have been stoppages. But, you know, Spence has some good power as well. I mean, he put down Sean Porter. You know what I mean? He's a hurtful puncher. Yeah. Even if he doesn't get you out of there, everyone that's been in there... It's the accumulation
of punches that he lands rather than the one shot from Crawford. That's fair to say.
And he's an expert body puncher as well. And we all know what they say about you going to the body and stuff like that. You're investing in stoppages for later on. So listen, man, it's an intriguing one.
So you're saying heart wants Spence to do it, but your head says no. Actually, you're going full in on Spence, aren't you?
I'm going for Spence.
Yeah.
But I would have to admit that it's more my heart than head.
Yeah.
A little bit of head as well, but my heart leans towards Spence. And listen, I say that as a Crawford fan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not like I want Spence to go in there and just decimate him because I don't like Crawford. No, I like both fighters. But on purely shameless national grounds, I'm just leaning towards Spence ever so slightly. It's one of those 55...
Yeah, I was
45, or maybe even a 51-49. Yeah, it could be a 51-49.
Is that good, man?
Like I said, it could literally boil down to on the night who executes their game plan the best, who's got that slight edge, because the margins for error will be slim on both sides.
It's a fascinating showdown, man. This will be taking place on BT Sport. Well, was it BT? It's called TNT now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So TNT Sports.
I think it's pay-per-view in this country.
Pay-per-view, yeah, it is pay-per-view. Listen,
but again, we will be covering the fight on DR Sports Boxing.
Yep.
So it will be myself, Shane. Actually, I think Shane's going out there for the fight.
Yep.
Shane's going out there. So it'll be myself, Nick, and James Toon from DR Sports Boxing. Again, you're welcome to join us, Darryl. You can take Shane's place if you like.
Absolutely, yeah. And we'll be covering it on my channel as well, the Boxing Lowdown. Yep. So, listen,
you have to, innit? It's the biggest fight since 2015, if you ask me.
It's fascinating, man. I just can't wait to see how it all plays out. Probably be on at like 5:30 in the morning or so.
Yeah, that's the only slight drawback. It's going to be very late, and by the time they get through with all the ceremony and all the pre-fight stuff, they could be getting in the ring quite late. Yeah, but it'll be worth staying up for.
It'll be worth it. For sure.
Trust me when I tell you. If there's any casuals out there watching this, take it from me and take it from Dal. This will be a fight that will not disappoint you. Trust me.
Well, that kind of wraps it up for the big fight preview, man. Don't forget, leave your comments in the comment section below. How do you see this fight going? Who wins it and why? Listen, great preview, man. Looking forward to the fight.
Respect, bro.
We'll catch up very soon.
Take care.